Module 3, market research and competitive landscape. Why does market research matter? Man, why does any kind of research matter? Why do you study before you do anything? Imagine going to a surgeon who's never studied how to do a surgery or has never performed one, or going to a mechanic who has never worked on a car, or going and eating at a restaurant with a chef who's never cooked a meal. You're probably not going to have the best experience. And the same is true with your business. You have to research what the market actually cares about. You can't just do something just because you want to do that. Well, I take that back. You can. You may not be very rich or successful at doing it. No, market research, of course it matters. You've got to know what the market demands, and you can be right about a lot of things, but you cannot be right about everything. Everybody has their own viewpoints, and especially when it comes to looking at market dynamics and predicting the future, which is essentially what you're doing as a founder or an entrepreneur. You're trying to predict the future of where these markets are going to go, and what people are going to go buy, why they're going to buy it. You're essentially trying to be a fortune teller. And most founders, they don't fail because of bad execution. A lot of times they fail because they chose the wrong market, or the wrong product in the wrong market, or the wrong timing. It's dangerous because it makes you fail slowly. It's not something where you're going to wake up overnight and be like, oh, this is clearly my problem. It's going to erode very slowly. By the time you realize that you may have spent so much time and money that you feel, to use a poker term, pot committed. You're like stuck and you can't get out. And then you end up spending even more time and money trying to dig out of the hole that you're in, putting good money after bad. You may struggle working months or years and still not see your market kind of develop. And that may be something that you want to do going into it. I mean, I certainly have been involved in and run multiple businesses where it was going to be years before we got to market or going to be profitable, but at least we knew that going in. It was a high risk, high reward type of swing that we were going after. But if your goal is to go from idea to operator and be able to do that, quickly, you really want to do that market research, get that voice of customer, understand what the driving trends are. And what does market research actually mean? How hard is it? What do you have to do? It used to be, you go and you find a market report, and then, okay, there's your total market size. And then you figure out, okay, well, this is my cost to make something, and then boom, go from there. But market condition dynamics are increasingly more complex than they've ever been, because there's so many different ways that people can engage with your company. There's different ways they can buy. There's multiple platforms that you have to be active and selling on continuously and have to be top of mind. But getting back to what market research actually means, it's about getting the behavior. What are the buying trends of your target customers? And when you're looking at competition, it's not just about, which other companies are doing what you're doing. It's also about, what if the customer is fine with the status quo, right? Maybe there's a pain that you're trying to solve that isn't as painful as you think. And that's where the research comes into play. You have to verify that not only is there a demand for the solution that you're providing, but that people are actually willing to pay for it, and then come back and then tell other people about it. You need to validate all of those assumptions all the way down and up the chain. Yeah, let me say one more thing on what market research actually means. Yes, you want to look at the data, get the reports and all that kind of stuff, but you're trying to peel all of the onion layers back and really understand the buying behaviors and the decision-making process of those target customers. Okay, what are the most important things to look for? One, you want to look at things that are already working. And when I say this, you're looking across industries, you're looking across markets. This is about real trend analysis. And you want to look historically, right? Because the best way that we learn is from looking backwards and what's happened in the past. You want to look at current trends, but then you're trying to use that information to predict the future and look forward. So, okay, what is already working? Study companies that are already succeeding. Look at how they are acquiring their customers. Where are they focusing their effort? Where are they spending money on marketing? What are the specific behaviors that they are doing that become best practices? And so bottom line is success leaves clues, so follow those clues. The next thing is you want to look at where things are broken and inefficient. I like to call these market inefficiencies. These are dynamic principles that continuously change. So these, a market inefficiency in 2024 is probably gone by now. Multiple companies have launched to solve those gaps. And then there's new market inefficiencies that are evolving. So here in 2026, there's new ones that are going to be coming out throughout the year. In 2028, there'll be more, in 2030, and so on. And so our job as founders, and especially in small businesses, is to be extremely adaptable and be able to address those issues where the big companies might be too slow. It might take them too long to adjust their corporate culture or to go after some of those things. So because we're small and nimble, we're well positioned to go after after that. So you want to look for areas where there's customer friction or frustration, maybe areas where there's still manual processes where people are doing workarounds, areas where you can come in and add some efficiencies of scale and process. If people are tolerating inefficient solutions, then there's an opportunity there. And especially if people are already paying for those things that are currently inefficient, there's real opportunity there. So that's what you want to look for. And this is true of any market, right? Whether it's a product you're selling, a service offering, a new approach, a new way to do things, even if you're selling commodities, you're trying to look for these market inefficiencies. Where are things selling over what they should? Where are things selling under what they should? And where is it disproportionate to the actual amount of work that is required to perform that task? Now that AI is a real thing, there's going to be an opportunity to find more of these inefficiencies than there has been probably since the internet was invented. So it's a real good time to try and target and take advantage of those opportunities. Okay, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but founder advantage and timing. The best market is not just, oh, hey, this is a great market because look at the numbers. There's $1 billion in an available market space here. Let's use a real example. Let's say that there was a new opportunity in the, let's say the veterinary healthcare. Let's say there was a new technology that came out that made it really easy to detect early cancer in canines. Okay, great. Obviously, huge demand for that, right? Like, what is it? 40% of people own dogs? I don't know. It's some crazy number, right? But there's a lot of dog owners in America, at least 100 million. And I think most dogs end up dying from cancer. So if that's something that you could solve, that would be huge, right? That'd be great. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're the right person that can take advantage of that. Just because it's a good idea doesn't mean you can actually use your founder credentials as a competitive advantage. For instance, let's say you're a lifelong baker and trying to launch this veterinary product against somebody else who has been a vet for 20 years and their co-founder is a leading oncologist, right? And understands all kinds of stuff about cancer. You may have a 6-month head start, right? That's competitive advantage. You got a timing advantage. Maybe you even have $1 million more in money to spend on the problem. I would still bet on the other team though, right? Like they have domain awareness, they have experience, they have connections, they could probably raise money easier. Like there's a lot of things that come with their advantage of just being domain in the industry. So you want to look for those types of contexts where you as a founder have that unfair domain advantage just because of where you are, how you're positioned, what your background is, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, now we're going to switch into understanding buying signals and competitive signals. So how do you interpret demand? What does that actually mean? What's a strong demand signal? Man, when you launch a new company, first you want to tell everybody you can. Okay, that's one thing I'll mention right now. A lot of people say, "Oh no, you want to hold it secret. You don't want somebody to steal your idea or rip it off or whatever." I promise you, nobody's as passionate about your idea as you are. And even if they are, they're not going to have the desire to run with it for the next 3 years to see it profitable like you will. And if they are, it's because they already either had that idea or they have a completely unfair competitive advantage that they're going to leverage. How do you prevent that? You put protections in place. We'll talk about legal protections and stuff in a future module, but that's just an aside. Don't be afraid to share your ideas with people. 99.99999% of people that you meet will never do it. And even if they wanted to, they wouldn't know how. They aren't positioned. They're too busy with their own stuff or distracted. It's just not something you should worry about. Okay, how do you interpret demand? Strong demand signals, well, if they're willing to pay, that's number one. How do you test that? You can actually do pilot studies and things early on to get people to actually start spending money with you for your service offerings or your products. That's by far and away the number one way demand signal that you're looking for. Short of that would be a commitment, like a letter of intent, a letter of support, something where they actually are putting things in writing. That's probably the second best to actually spending money. And then third would be to go on record and say something nice and supporting about you. Weak signals include things that we do a lot, right? Unfortunately, we still have to use weak signal demands sometimes to show some early traction, especially if we're pre-launch or don't have a product. But those are things like surveys, testimonials, compliments, just loose levels of interest, agreeing to have a meeting or a phone call and saying a lot of nice things about you or your product. That stuff is free. It's easy to get, and it just doesn't mean a lot. So it's nice to hear. We love compliments. We love people who support what we're doing. Support is very important, especially when you're early on as a founder. You'll die without it. You definitely need the support, but don't mistake that support for demand signals for your product. You really want to validate that with actual people who could potentially turn into paying customers. And don't be afraid to ask them to call your baby ugly. That feedback is going to save you the time and money in the future. Don't fool yourself into believing that the compliments are promises of payment, because they're not. Okay, so at the end of this module, I'm hoping that you have a better understanding of where you can realistically win, understanding how markets behave, understanding how buyers behave, and what actually represents real demand versus loose support, and how to take that to identify where opportunity exists for your product, service, business, etc. Again, it's hard work, but doing it up front will save you a lot of time and money in the long run. And then finally, being able to understand where you can leverage your strengths. Okay, with that said, I will see you guys all in module 4. Good luck.